Okay, let's see. Am I back on live? Let's see. Okay. Refresh my screen. I want to be able to see your comments. Oh, that's so weird. Now it's sideways. Let's see if that helps. That's going to cut down the... Now it's upside down. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, I don't like it going this direction, but I don't want to keep you guys holding all night while you wait for me to adjust my camera. So we are going to make this work. Okay. There, now we're ready. Okay, so thank you for being patient while I still try to get a command of this whole process. Just a reminder, since I got cut off there, I just want to remind everybody about Celebration. It ends on September 30th. If there is anything in this catalog that you are just dying for and really want to make sure you get, then you want to do that before the end of the month. We are already out of stock, I guess, on the bedazzling paper. So any of the other items, you're going to want to get them before they run out, because Stampin' Up! Only has limited quantities of these items because it is for such a short period of time. So make sure that if there's something you want, there. Okay, this little arm thing is going to drive me nutso. Will that hold it in place, do you think? Got everything tightened about as tight as it'll go. Okay, there we go. Okay. Oh, hi, Tina. I see that you're watching. Nice for you to join us. Okay, so the first card I've got for you tonight is a little Halloween card. And super, super simple. And it uses this great Cutest Halloween set. I absolutely love this. So we're going to use it, and it of course has a matching paper that goes with it, a DSP, and I love this DSP. I think it is so darn adorable. In fact, I have to show you, this little guy right here is the one that sells it for me, this little vampire guy. I want to squeeze him and love him and kiss him. He's so darn cute. Okay, so this is the stamp set that comes. It's got some cute little messages, like have a fabulous Halloween, treat yourself, trick or treat, you put a smile on my face, and hey boo. Then it's also got this pumpkin, a cat, and a ghost that go with a punch that we have where you can stamp them and punch them out, or you can punch them out of the DSP. This little skeleton guy is super cute too, but we don't have a punch for him. He is on some of the DSP, but there isn't a punch. So, and this little spider with his big googly eyes, I just love him. I just love this whole set. Everything about it I think is great. But tonight what we're going to use is, we're actually going to use a different punch. This one, oh, I can't even remember what it's called. I was going to write it down before today. It's been a crazy week with work, and not everything I wanted to get done got done. So, but this punch is in the catalog. Let me see here really quick, because I can tell you, I can just look at the catalog and tell you that it is called the Tailored Tag Punch. Hey, Marcy. Hi, Talina. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys. Okay, so we're just getting started on our first card, and let's go ahead and get her going. So first you have a half of a sheet of the basic gray cardstock, I think it is. I'm going to fold it. I always like to use the bone folder just to get a nice crisp edge. First thing I like to do is stamp the inside of my card, and we're not going to do a whole lot with this one, but instead of stamping, we're going to do a little bit of play with the cardstock. And I did do some fussy cutting. You guys, I do not like fussy cutting, so that tells you how much I love this paper if I was willing to do fussy cutting for it. So I cut out this little bat guy who's hanging from a tree with it after his, I'm guessing he's asleep because he's in a sugar coma because he went trick-or-treating. And then I have two of these little bats. I love them because they're chubby and I can relate to them. Aren't they cute? Oh, they're going to go on the outside though. So you little chubby bats sit over there. But the other thing we're going to do on the inside is I have this one strip that I used this die from the Pen to Flowers die set to make the edges. And I just pre-did all of my die cutting to save us some time tonight. That, and then there's this really thin strip of Highland Heather. This strip is 5.5. I'm sorry, it's 5 1/4. Should be 5 1/4. I made it 5 1/2, but I'll trim it off. It should be 5 1/4 by 1/8 of an inch. This piece should be 5 1/4, and I just did like 3/4 of an inch or something like that so that I had plenty of room to make my punch. Then what we're going to do is take just a tiny bit of, got my shot glass of glue here. My son was here a couple weeks ago or a week ago, and he was teasing me about it because he wanted to make a card for his grandma, only he wanted to make the most horrible card he possibly could. It was actually quite funny. But anyway, I handed him the glue and he said, "Do I have to take a shot of glue?" I should have told him yes. Anyway, so I'm just putting a teeny tiny bit of glue. I don't know if any of you had this, but when my kids were little, what they taught them in preschool with the glue was dot, dot, not a lot. And I found that even that seems to be a little much sometimes with my cards. So just do it really, really lightly. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just putting this in the middle. I put it over the little dotted or the stitched line. That just kind of gave me a good guide, I guess you could say. And now I will trim that off. You can always trim off extra. You can't put extra on very easily. So it's not a big deal to me if I left it too long. Okay, now what we're gonna do is glue this onto the white cardstock. This piece is 4 1/4. I'm sorry, it's 4 by 5 1/4 for the inside of the card. Put a little bit of glue on here. You know, we have several different types of adhesives, and I'm going to use several of them tonight. What I use pretty much depends on what I'm doing. I really only use the liquid glue when I'm doing really small pieces like this, but some people use it for their entire cards. When I do stamping workshops where people are making cards, I think I'm going to be having them use the liquid glue just because it's easier for people to work quickly, I think, that may not necessarily know how to use the glue or the Stampin Seal, which you'll see me use tonight. So anyway, there we go. I've just put that little piece right along the bottom just to give it a little interest. And then I have my little sugar coma bat, and I'm just going to use glue dots on him. If I can find my glue dots. There we go. I have a basket over here of all my goodies that I'm using tonight. Okay, so you guys, I'm so excited. I've almost used a whole roll of glue dots. Hi, Kathy. It's nice to see you. Okay, let's see here. By the way, I did issue a challenge where I said, invite a friend, and if you and your friend both show up, there will be a gift for each of you. So if you invited a friend and they show up tonight, make sure you leave something in the comments to let me know, because I want to make sure that you get your little your little prize that I promised. Now, this glue dot over here is going to be bigger than my branch. That's not really a big deal. You can fold up the edges, just fold them under a little bit so you don't have a bunch of extra sticky there. Not a big deal. Then I'm going to hang him right off the edge here. And let's see. Perfect, and there he is. So let's glue him to the inside of the card. This is where I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal. Sometimes if you press too hard, especially if you're getting toward the end of the roll and you need a new one, sometimes, well, what happens is as you're getting toward the end, sometimes you have to press a little harder, and sometimes when you press a little harder, it tears up your paper a little bit. It's not a big deal if it's on the back, but what you want to do is, you can see where it tore up the edge a little bit there. Come at it from the other side and roll over it. It just glues it right back down. Okay, now we'll mount that in there. How about if I put it in right side up? Okay. Okay, so there's our inside with our cute little bat. Now let's work on the outside. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of Highland Heather. This piece is 4 by 5 1/4. I also have a piece from, this is from the Halloween paper that I was talking about, the cute Halloween paper that matches the Cutest Halloween stamp set. Oops, really important. Put your lid on your glue so it doesn't dry out the tip. And I just keep mine in this great little shot glass, not because I necessarily need to have a shot glass handy, but it's a perfect size and it keeps my glue upside down so that the glue's always going toward the tip, and I love that. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue this little piece on here. Yeah, I'm definitely getting toward the end of this roll, but I kind of knew that might happen, so I actually came prepared tonight, and I have a spare ready to put in there if we need it. So I'm going to stick this on here. I cut it so that the piece that is the Halloween paper is actually 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. It makes it just slightly smaller than the Highland Heather piece, so you just have a tiny pop of color on the front of the card when it's on there. So that's just kind of a fun way to give it a little bit dressed up without having too terribly much. Now we're going to put this side strip together. Got my little strip with my cute little bat and my little vampire guy that I love so much. Put a little glue on here. This is our Seal Plus. If you haven't used it before, it's what I typically use for most of the stuff that I do. It's a nice strong adhesive, but you do want to be careful. It's not as forgiving. Once you press your paper down, it's a little harder to pull it back up, so you want to be careful of that. Now I want to take, I think I'm going to use my liquid glue for this one again, because the liquid glue will give you a little bit of play so that when you try to stick it, like in this case, I'm going to stick it to the back, so it comes out as an edge. It's still sort of wet, so I can move it around if I need to. So there we go. See how I'm kind of playing with it a little because I just want to make sure it's, for the most part, even. Okay, so we've got this strip. Now what we're going to do is going to adhere this onto our card. Maybe. Yep, it's eaten itself up now. It's time to replace it. But first, let's put this on the card. So I'm putting this all the way over to the edge. You don't have to. With yours, you can move it. You know, if you wanted to place it over a little bit more, you could. I'm just putting mine on the very edge here. Stick it down. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I have my little punches that I used from the Tailored Tag punch, And I have a white one and one that's Highland Heather. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp the white one. Now, if you have a difficult time stamping straight on little pieces like this, you can always stamp it on your white cardstock first and then punch it out, because you can line up your punch and make sure it's centered. And I do that quite a bit myself. I didn't tonight, but test my stamp real quick. There we go. Looks like, you know, your pressure is different every time, just because sometimes you put more into it. You know, the stamp doesn't change, but you do. And maybe it just depends on how angry you are that day. So now I'm going to stamp this right in the middle. There we go. You put a smile on my face. And I'm going to wash off my stamps with my handy dandy Simply Chamois, or Stampin' Chamois, or something chamois. If you go to my website at heathersides.stampinup.net and you just type in chamois, S-H-A-M-M-Y, then that's where you'll find this. We have two different kinds of stamp cleaners. We've got this, and then we've got the Stampin' Scrub. It took me a while to give in and try this one because I'm old school and I was familiar with the Stampin' Scrub. And, you know, old dog, new tricks, all that. But I found that I really like it, and now I use it exclusively. And it's cheaper than the Stampin' Scrub. Okay, so now, oh, got to put my ink pad away, because those who know me know that I like to lay down in ink pads for some reason. Another thing that's good to keep on hand is baby wipes, because then when you stick your finger in the ink, you can wipe it right off and not worry about getting it onto your card. Okay, so I'm going to take this Highland Heather one that I punched out with the tailored tag punch, and I'm just cutting it in half. Now what I'm going to do is, oh, I need to change my adhesive. If you have not changed one of these before, it's really easy. It comes apart, comes in half. Then the refills come in a little bag like this. I love that they're resealable bags, because it makes me laugh, because once you take it out, it's not like you would need to put it back in and reseal it. So it makes me laugh that it's resealable. Okay, so there's two, you can see two holes here. There's a big one and a little one. They line up with the big X and the little X. You just put it right there. Put your lid back on, or your other side. Squeeze it together, and you're good to go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little adhesive on this guy, because this is what I'm going to stick the purple to. If you go off the edge a little bit, you can just fold it under, take the adhesive that's sticking out, just fold it under. It's not a big deal. And I'm going to line this up. It's kind of small, so it's hard to see, for you to see it through my fingers, I'm sure, but just try to make sure that your margins are the same on both sides. Now I'm going to do the other side here as well. There. Now we're going to stick this onto the card. You know what? Sorry, I just bumped the camera. I'm going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals on there. I love dimensionals. It pops everything up on the card and just, it makes it stand out. When I really realized the value of these is, I was showing some cards I'd made to my husband, and I make him look at everything, and he has to know the appropriate cues and responses. For example, we like sparkles. That's something he has learned to say when something is sparkly. We like sparkles. Anyway, dimensionals, he was looking at a card that I had made, and he goes, oh, that kind of pops out, that sticks out. So the fact that he, not really knowing anything about the card making process and the stamping, that stood out to him, that told me that was something to definitely continue doing. Okay, now I'm going to take my Take Your Pick tool, you guys. If you don't have one of these, you need one. This is the greatest. If I had to say one tool that I have that everybody needs, it would be this. It's got a putty end for putting like little jewels or gems or little pieces on, which you'll see me use later. It also has, this is the little pokey tool. Yes, that's the ring. Oh, did it interrupt? Okay, so the other end of this is a little putty knife that you can use. And then there's also a brush tip that I'm going to show you in a little while that you can buy as an attachment to add on to this. So it's such a useful tool. It's just got tons and tons of different ways to use it. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm using it to pick off the backings off my dimensionals. That way they tend to be very static clingy, and this way they all come off together and I can throw them away all in one, and they're not everywhere. Not to say I don't end up carting them all over my house on my socks anyway. But we're going to put this right here. That looks straight to me. Now what I should have done before I put that puffy stuff, that puffy part on my card, is I should have gone ahead and put the adhesive on it and adhered it to my card. Not a big deal. Okay. Oop. Just trying to line it up so that all my margins are roughly the same. Now, last but not least, we have our two little chubby bats. Love my little chubby bats. I mean, look at them, you guys. They're so darn cute. How can you possibly resist these guys? Oh, I love them. Okay, so what I'm going to put on them, I'm going to pop them up with Stampin' Dimensionals too. But the regular dimensionals are just a little too big for them, so I'm going to use my mini ones. Now we have the white. We have both white and black in both sizes, and if you buy the white ones, you'd buy them separately. You'd buy a pack of the big ones or a pack of the little ones. The black ones actually come in a mixed pack, so you'd get both in one pack. Okay, there, get on there. There we go. Now I'll just pluck my little backing off. And I'm going to stick my bats on here. And there we go. What do you think, guys? Don't forget our inside. Another demonstrator, I really like to watch her videos. Her name is Kelly Atchison, and she always says the party shouldn't end when you open the card. And I love that. So, you know, spend a little time, decorate the inside of your card. You don't have to do something as time-consuming as this, where you have to cut stuff out, but it is kind of fun to do. Okay, so I'm going to clean up my mess a little bit here. Not too much, because I'm just going to make another one. But I want to get started and show you our next card. Let's see here. I'll put these on my chair. Okay, so the next card we've got is a nice fall card. We use some dies in this one and some more great DSP, Designer Series paper. So I've made this one, and I'm going to use kind of a really easy, very old school technique. So I hope you like it. And that's the inside of the card. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is take my Misty Moonlight cardstock, fold it in half. And this is just a half of a sheet. It's 5.5 by 8.5. Fold it in half to make the card. And you can make your cards any size you want, but this is a standard size card that fits in a standard A2 envelope. So most of my cards are this size. We're going to get started on the inside. There's not a whole lot to do for the inside because usually it is pretty simple on the inside because you want to leave room to write your message. What we're going to do, I like it when there's something that just kind of softens the paper a little bit. And so this little splatter technique, all you do is you put the tip of your pen in with the cap and you kind of flick it a little bit. And you can see, I think you can see that on the screen, where it gives you like those little spots. It just adds a little interest to the card without going overboard and making it too much. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my crumb cake ink. I'm going to open up my ink pad here. And I just want these little leaves, and see it's just little, it's a pumpkin plant is what it is before it gets the pumpkin. And just going to put that in the lower corner there. There, just a little something to give it some interest. Now I'm going to use my chamois to wash it off. Close my ink pad. And now we're going to glue this on the inside. Thank you, Tina and Kathy and Talina, everybody who's saying how cute the card was. Okay, so now we're gonna stick this in here. Just lining it up, trying to make sure my margins are roughly the same everywhere. Now, set this aside to do the rest of our card. What I have is a piece of Calypso Coral. This piece is 4 inches by 5 1/4. Then I have a piece of our craft cardstock. This is limited edition. It's in our holiday mini catalog, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a weird message on my computer. Let me fix this real quick. Okay, so anyway, it's in our holiday mini catalog, and it's like, I don't know, let me look. It's like $7 for a pack of it. You get a pretty good amount of it. Let's see if I can find it quickly. I won't keep you too long if I can't. It is on page 9 of the mini catalog. It's just right here, and it is $6 for 20 sheets, 26 by 6 sheets. So you do get quite a bit of it. It is very heavy duty. I mean, it's about as thick as our regular cardstock. And the reason I point that out is because for our technique tonight, I'm going to crumple it all up. And then because it's as heavy as it is, it doesn't necessarily crumple really well. So I uncrumple it and then crumple it some more in other directions. If I had a little more time, what I would probably do is spritz it with some water. It crumples a lot better when it's slightly damp. The thing about that is you want to wait till it's totally dry to make your card. So it's definitely a step you would want to do in advance if you can. Okay, so we have our crumpled up piece here. Isn't that just lovely? Wouldn't you just love to receive a card with that on it? Okay. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to take my bone folder, and I'm just kind of flattening it back out. It's not going to completely flatten it out, and I really wouldn't want it to. I want to maintain some of that texture and dimension of all the crumples. But if it's too crumply, it won't adhere to the card itself as well as you would want it to. So spend a little time just going over it with your bone folder to flatten it back out. Now, take your adhesive, and for this you would really want to use a nice strong adhesive like your Seal Plus or tear and tape, something like that'll make it stick really well. Now I'm lining it up here. Like the card before it, I actually made the border made the Calypso Coral piece is just slightly bigger than the craft sheet, but it looks a little bigger because, of course, rumpling up the paper makes it look smaller. Okay. You see how it's sticking up there? I didn't get it adhered very well, so we're going to put more adhesive on there. You know what? I may just go through and use my tear and tape on this. Tear and tape is probably the strongest adhesive that we have. So when you're doing something like this, if your regular adhesive isn't holding it down, go ahead and use some of this. I mean, the roll you get is a super long roll. It'll take you forever and a day to go through the whole thing anyway, so you don't have to be stingy about using it. Okay. There we go. Now here's another way that I use my take your pick tool. Remember how I said I use it for lots of things. What I do is when I put my tearing tape down, go over it a little bit with your bone folder. What that does is make sure it's nice and stuck to your paper, and it kind of loosens it a little bit from the, oh, what do you call it? It loosens it from this strip that you're going to peel off. Makes it really easy to just lift that right off. Okay, now let's put that on our Calypso coral piece. There. It's a little crooked, but tearing tape is very unforgiving, so it's not going to let me lift that back up and fix it. And that is one thing you want to be aware of with tearing tape. Now, we're going to take this little piece. I cut this out with our seasonal labels dies. On one side you get their leaves, and there's some holly leaves and pine cones, so it's kind of fall type stuff, but I could see it with some greens and lighter colors and being springy as well. But the other side you also get all these labels that are great that you would use year round, and I used this label right here, the really big one, to make this piece. So once again, I'm going to take my pen, my Stampin' Blend, and I'm going to flick on it just to give it a little bit of interest. And I'm going to set it aside for a second. When you flick like this, it does take the ink a little bit longer to dry. These are alcohol-based pens, so they do typically dry pretty quickly anyway. But if you move too fast after doing that flicking on here, you can smudge the ink, but now it's fine. So you just got to give it a minute. We're going to take the Misty Moonlight ink, and I'm using the message, So Thankful for You. I forgot to show you guys the stamp set. This is our Pretty Pumpkin stamp set, and it does have a coordinating set of dies that I am using with this card. One of them is missing because I want to show you something with it, but it comes with some detailed pumpkins, some leaves. Like this one right here would match those the pumpkin plant that we stamped on the inside of the card. This one is a big solid pumpkin. It goes with this detailed stamp. So it's a great set to have, nice and fall looking. And it has several different sentiments. If friends were pumpkins, I'd pick you. So Thankful for You, and Gather Together. So there's some versatility with this set. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this right here. And now I'm going to wash it off. Okay. Now we're going to set this aside for a minute while we start putting some things together. I told you that I made a couple of pumpkins out of the dies. First one I did was this one with a little detail, and I used our Harvest Meadow, I think is the name of the paper. Let me find it for you here. It's beautiful, beautiful paper. I kind of was on the fence about whether or not I needed it in my life. And then I took a class. Oh, it's in the mini. I took a class where we used it, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Let's see here. It looks like it's on page... Yes, it is called Harvest Meadow. It's on page 55 of the mini catalog. And you can see here some of the different, all the different papers. All of our paper, by the way, is double-sided. So you get two different images. And one of the things that I've heard people say, well, you know, I just don't necessarily like all the papers in that pack. The interesting thing is, typically if there's one you don't like, you will like the one on the other side. So you can use that. But this is a great little bundle as well. Lots of neat stuff in it. Okay, so I cut one pumpkin out of one of the papers from that. Cut the second pumpkin out of another one of the papers, and you can see this one has a lot of detail to it. And I want to show you a trick with this. This is just an old paper pumpkin box that I've used. And I ordered the attachment. This is a brush attachment specifically for what I'm about to show you. And it comes with a couple of sponge mats so that, you know, you could individually pick out all these little details if you wanted. But instead of doing that, if you can leave the paper in the die, set the die down because it'll protect your paper a little bit. As you brush over it, what that does is it loosens up the paper a little bit. So those little pieces, a lot of them now will just fall right out and you don't have to pick them out. It's a little quicker for you. Now at this point it's gotten loose and it's coming out of the die, but these pieces that didn't just fall out, you can see I'm barely touching them and they're falling out. And that's what you get with this die. Isn't that gorgeous? I love it. And to use it with a designer series paper gives it some neat dimension to it, just because then your paper or your pumpkin isn't just a solid color, and I love it. And like I said, I just keep mine in my paper pumpkin, an old paper pumpkin box. And I bought a second take your pick tool just so that I can leave it in the box all the time as well. But that's how that works. I'm telling you, the take your pick tool is a must-have, must-have. Okay, now I also have a strip. I know I cut it. I wonder if I put it in the wrong envelope. Hang on here. Okay, that's so weird. I have a strip that I cut today. In fact, I had a Stampin Up, or a delivery from Stampin Up today, and I had to cut it out of it. So give me just a second to cut this sheet again. Oh, there we go. It was sitting on my trimmer. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and adhere it onto the card. This is one of the another piece from that Autumn Harvest. Is that what I said it was called? The Autumn Harvest paper that I like so much. Okay, so just going to go ahead and stick this on here. Be a little bit generous with the adhesive on this because, again, you're dealing with that crumply paper that doesn't want to be quite as good about holding on to your paper. And I'm just going to glue this on here. This piece is 1 3/4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. That's not quite straight. That'll bother me. Let's see here. Okay, we're going to call that good, I think. Okay, we're just going to call it good and move on. That's what I have a hard time doing. I could fuss with that all night long. Now I want to put this on my card, my tag here. And I'm just kind of eyeballing where I want it. There's no real particular rhyme or reason to where I put it. Now I have my 2 pumpkins right here. I'm going to show you a trick for gluing down these little tiny, see how there's just all these little tiny details, and adhesive will show through, and then the front of your card is sticky. So what I do, this is my silicone mat. It is designed so that adhesive doesn't stick to it. So if I'm working with something, sometimes I'll put adhesive on the back of something and then go, oh, I'm not ready to stick it to my card yet or whatever. I can set it on this and I don't have to worry about it sticking to my table or whatever. Now I'm going to take my liquid glue, put a little bit. This liquid glue, by the way, is only $4. It's a great thing to have in your arsenal. Now I'm using a sponge dauber. These are 5 for $5. They're a great deal. And I'm just going over the back of this to get some glue on it. And now I'll set this on my card. Now this pumpkin, the pieces are still a little small. I could use regular adhesive, but I've already got my glue out, my liquid glue. So I'm just gonna put a little bit on this way. And then I don't have to worry about adhesive sticking out since it is kind of on that fence of whether or not it's too small for regular adhesive. There we go. Now we just need to embellish this a little bit. So I love to add bows to everything. So grab my baker's twine. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to use linen thread instead. The linen thread is just a little bit thinner than our baker's twine. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, what I did here is I tied a couple of double bows, and the way to tie double bows, super simple. You don't need a whole lot of length here for your twine, but what I did is I got about how much I wanted and then I just doubled it. I maybe should have gotten a little more than that. We'll see. Yeah, I should have, so we'll set that aside and use that for something else. I think part of the hardship that people often have with tying bows is they don't get enough of the thread or the ribbon or whatever it is. So give yourself permission to use it. I mean, when you get a roll of it, you get a lot of it. So give yourself some permission. You'll be so much happier with the bows you end up with. Okay. Now, I just tied it like it was a regular bow, but I had 2 strings in there. And I don't want these too terribly big. Yeah, that looks all right. So I've tied my bows. Then I'm going to use glue dots to glue them on. Trim those a little bit. Then I'm going to do another one for the other pumpkin. If you have a hard time tying bows, there are a lot of tools out there for making bows, some a little more expensive than others. I have one that I use sometimes, but I've gotten better at tying bows, so I don't use it quite as much as I used to. But you can also just tie knots. Knots work too, depending on what it is that you're working with. There. Let's trim this guy. And another glue dot to adhere this to our other pumpkin. There. Let's go ahead and glue this down. And then we're going to jazz it up just one more step. I'm going to glue this down to the front of the card. Eyeball it to try to make sure your margins are roughly the same everywhere. And if your cards aren't absolutely lined up perfect, remember, we're not Hallmark, and that's part of what makes our cards special. Anything handmade that you make, it's special because you made it, and you know what? It's going to have little independent pieces of you in it. And if it looked absolutely perfect, then, like I said, it'd be a Hallmark card, and we aren't Hallmark. So that alone has given me a little bit of a freedom to make mistakes here and there. Okay, so now I have our brushed metallic adhesive backed dots. These are another one that I wasn't so sure I needed until I saw someone use it, and then of course I needed it. And I'm using my Take Your Pick tool. I'm taking the putty end, and I just push them off of the plastic there. I can lay them down. I try not to push them down too hard until I have them placed and know that's where I want them for sure, because I can still lift them up and move them if I wanted to. And I like them there, so I'll go ahead and push them down tight. And there's our card, you guys. Isn't that great? Inside and outside, and it didn't take too long to do it. Okay. What do you think? Thanks. Okay, let's clean up this mess a little bit, and we'll get going on our last card so that I don't have to keep you here all night, though I would love to sit here and stamp all night. Okay, let's see. The last card. Oh, good. I'm glad you love it, Tina. Okay. Now, the last one we have here, it is using our Blackberry Beauty suite of products. And this one, when we first launched the holiday catalog, let me find it here. It is on page 49 of the mini catalog. By the way, if you don't have a catalog and you would like one and you don't have another demonstrator that you already work with, let me know. I'd be happy to send you a catalog. Okay, I could have sworn it said page 49, but it was not on page 49. So let's try that again. This is why we wear our glasses, and I am not. Let's try 46. Nope, not there. Okay, there we go. It's on 44 and 45. And you can see it's just beautiful colors. It uses our rich raspberry and some gold and some Sahara sand. But you can see just some beautiful colors. There's even a gold shimmery vellum that you can get. Gold ribbon. It's a beautiful, beautiful set. Okay, so what we're going to do with this one is we're going to make this card, and this card is actually going to be a gift card. You don't have to make it a gift card, but we can do that. So let's get started on this guy. The way that this one folds is a little different than your normal card. What I did is I scored the piece. I cut my piece of paper lengthwise instead of the normal horizontal cut that we do. I did a vertical cut, so this is 4 1/4 by 11 inches. Then I scored it. I don't know if you can see that score line very well, but I scored it 1 1/4 inches from one edge. So I'm going to fold that and then use my bone folder to give it a nice crisp edge there. And then I'm just going to fold this piece over, butt it up right to the other piece. Now the reason I do it this way, first of all, this doesn't appear to be super straight, so I need to fix that. The reason I do it this way is because sometimes the measurements are just a little bit off, and then your edges don't match up quite perfectly like they should. So if you only score one edge, you can pull the other piece over to just fold up right next to it, and then it works just fine. So there we go. So I'm bringing this edge over to line it up with the other fold. Use my bone folder to get a nice crisp edge. So you see I've got the two pieces here. It's kind of like a gatefold card, but not centered like a gatefold card normally would be. Ooh, I've got lots of pieces falling all over the place here. Okay, so first I have these strips here. I have two strips that are 1 inch by 4 inches. I also have our cork paper. If you have not used our cork paper yet, oh my gosh, it's so soft, but it's actual, I assume it's actual cork because that's exactly what it feels like. I expected it to be thicker like a roll of cork is, but it's not. You can see that it's no thicker than our cardstock. It's really, really thin and really, really soft. I love it. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and glue it down on the card. Just on this bigger section. Now we're going to take our strips that I just showed you that are 1 1/4, I'm sorry, they're 1 inch by 4 inches. And we're going to stick them down on the front of the card as well. Put one in that little bottom fold there. And then this one, we're just going to line up along the bottom of that cork. You know what? I'm going to wait to put it down though. And I'll show you why in just a minute. So I just set it aside with the sticky side up. What we're going to do now is let's do the inside of our card. So you take your tearing tape. And the reason I'm using tearing tape here is because this is where we're going to make the little fold that a gift card could go in, which means it's going to have stuff going in and out of it, possibly frequently. And so you don't want it to, the pressure of that to tear it open. So you just use a little bit stronger adhesive. Wrong end. Pull these guys off. And now just fold this in half. Or fold it up. That's all I did for that. You see that it's open here for your gift card. The other thing you're going to do is let me show you what die set I used here. This is our Scalloped Contours Die Set, and this is another one that's great. It's got a stamp set that matches it for the flowers, but I like to use it a lot for these scalloped frames. And so I just used this one. It was the next to the largest one, and cut out a piece of white cardstock for the inside of my card. And got that right here. And I have my stamps. This, I'm going to make it a birthday card since I'm going to put a gift card in it. I'm using the Rich Razzleberry ink. And I think I'll line it up right there and make it a little bit off center just because I can. Clean off my stamp. Now, because I have my ink pad out already, I'm going to go ahead and stamp the other piece that I need to stamp. It's just this little tiny strip. It's a 1/2 inch by, that looks like it's about 1 3/4 inches. And what I'm using is I'm actually using a stamp from this Pansy patch stamp set. This is another one that there's a whole suite of products that go with it. And I took this one that says a little hello from me to you, but I just want that from me to you part. So let me show you how that's done. So I have, you can use tape, you can use a sticky note, you know, whatever works for you. I'm just going to grab a sticky note for now. And you just cover up the part of it that you don't want to get ink on. Then you ink it up. Now, a very integral part of this is take off the sticky note. And I'm going to center this message on here. Not very straight. I'll redo it. Fortunately, even our cardstock has two sides. I think that was my first one. There we go. That is better. That's better. Okay. Wash off my stamp. A little trick I showed last week, but I'll show it again. Sometimes when you have to use the back side of your paper, where you've cut, like when I cut it this way, it made these little lines. I don't know if you can even see them in the video, but it made these little edges stick up. So I just take my bone folder and go over those edges. It pushes them right back down so it doesn't look like the back side of the paper. Gonna use a little bit of my seal here. And now I have this strip that is 3/4 of an inch wide by like 4 inches long, just because I needed it to be longer, longish. And I'm going to use, okay, set this guy down. I'm going to use my take your pick punch, it might be called. And this is the tags one. And the nice thing about this is it has 3 measurements. You can put a piece of paper in here that's a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, or an inch wide, and it just fits right in there and cuts. Looks like my paper might be a little bit big, but we'll see here. Oh, and I typed I stamped or cut the wrong one. I wanted this one over here, but that's okay. It's only paper. And we're going to trim that other end off anyway, so it's fine. There. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little stamped message and line it up here. There, just like that. And then I'm going to take my paper snips and I just cut the edge there. Okay, I'm going to set that aside for now. Get back to the inside of my card. I'm just going to glue this piece down. You don't have to glue this down. You could have it be removable if you wanted. I chose to just glue it because if I made it removable, it would go all the way down in here and it doesn't quite fit in, you know, spatially in the card. So I glued mine down. Doo-dee-doo. Is that straight? Straight enough. Okay, so the inside of the card is now done. So now we're going to go back to the front of our card. I have 2 tags that I cut out here with our Tailored Tags die set. Let me show that to you. Makes 2 different types of tags, a little more rounded edge or a little kind of a stop sign sort of edge. You can make them in several different sizes that layer on each other. And then it also comes with the little pieces that are the reinforcers on a tag. And I cut out all 4 of them because I was afraid that if I just did got one, it would get lost. There we go. And all I need for that, to put that on, is I'm going to use a glue dot. Now my glue dot is going to stick up through the center of that, but I don't care because I'm going to put a bow over that anyway, so it really doesn't matter. And I'm just going to put, I think I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool because I can see a little bit better where I'm setting it. so I can line it up with this, with the hole in the tag. There. And I stamped one with our gold cardstock. Our gold cardstock is beautiful. It comes with 3 different shades of goldish color. It's beautiful. I love it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line these up so that the centers are together, but I want them to offset each other just a little bit like this. So just get it to how you like it. Then, and that, what I did is because I had that glue dot in the center there, and I used my take your pick tool to kind of line everything up. The nice thing is that little bit of adhesive from the glue dot glued the 2 tags together. A little bit, enough to hold it for me while I do this part. And this, I'm just putting a little bit of glue on there, or adhesive on there. Now I'll put it on the back of the tag. And I'm just going to line it up on my card where I want it. And now I'm going to take that other strip that I had, the 1 inch by 4 inches that I glued earlier and said, oh, I'm going to set it aside. And I'm just going to line it up on my cork, just right on the bottom there, so that it covers up the bottom of my tags. Then I took the ephemera pack that comes with this bundle, and I'd show it to you, but I've used most of mine already. So it has several little flowers in it, and I took some of the gold leafing out of the ephemera pack, and then one of the flowers, and I'm going to use glue dots to stick it onto my tag. I used a different one, obviously, in my original card, but there was only one like it, so I'm using a different one for this one. Sticking those little glue dots on there. You get a ton of glue dots in your package, so don't be stingy with them. Now I probably should have waited to put, I should have waited to put my strip on here because I want to lay my flowers down. So we just make it work anyway. And you just kind of fiddle with it till you like where it's at. We take this little punch tag that we made a couple minutes ago. We're going to use dimensionals. And you guys, if you use up a whole sheet of dimensionals, don't forget that this stuff around the edges works just as well. So use that too. And that might seem a little excessive to use 3 dimensionals on this little piece, but I don't want it to sag in the middle, so that's why I used 3. And I'm just going to stick this on here. There we go. There's our card. Oh, no, one last thing. We need a gold bow. And I normally like to do the double bows with this really thin twine or trim, but I found that there was enough gold on this card already that if I did a double bow, it was just too much, and it just really, like, that was all you looked at on the card. So I'm doing just one single bow, then adjust it to the size that I want it. Kind of got to play with it a little bit. this twine, the gold and the silver, sometimes has a little mind of its own and wants to twist. And I'm not sure what the solution is for that. So you just got to fight with it and show it who's boss, I guess. Oops. See if that's about the size. Yeah, that's about the size I want, I think. So now I'll trim my edges. And once again, we're going to use a glue dot to glue it down. And see how I have this one stray edge there? My glue dot should hold it in place once I get it on there. And we're just putting it right over that little gold piece. And then last but not least, I'm going to take some of our gilded gems, put a few on my card just to give it a little something extra. I think I want to use a big one and maybe a little one here. What do we think? Right there? Okay. Stick them down. And here we have our card. You can just leave your message, leave it for a message to write in, or you can write a message and stick a little gift card in there. And there you have it. So let me just recap what we've made tonight. But that's the 3 that I have for you. Remember, if you invited a friend and your friend came and was on, on this video, if you're both here, you both get a prize. So make sure you let me know that you invited a friend and the friend was here. Let me know who the friend was so that I can get a hold of both of you for prizes. Okay, so the 3 cards we made tonight, we made this one with the Blackberry Beauty suite of products. We use this one with the Pretty Pumpkins set, and this one with our Cutest Halloween. I guess these are a little off-center. What do you guys think? Thanks, Talina. Thanks, Marcy. So that concludes the cards that I have for you this week. I will be back next Wednesday. I don't know yet what I'm going to be showing, but I will be back next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And in the meantime, if you would like to place a Stampin' Up! Order, please go to my website at heathersides.stampinup.net. You can also go to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/stamphappenings, and follow me there so that you know when we're going to have videos and that kind of thing. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. That helps get some traction with the Facebook algorithms. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do the same. You're welcome to share this video on your page. That also gets me out there. You never know who in your circle of friends might be interested in some stamping tutorials, and when you share it, that helps me a lot. So then also, if you want to place an order for any of these wonderful products, you go to my website. If your order is $150 or less, use my host code. If it is over $150, remember not to use the host code because you're going to get host rewards, and I want to make sure that you get them. So that's all I have for you tonight. I hope you had a great time, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.